Hi, this is Brandy Mars. I'm here because today I was over helping my sister go shopping after her car died. And she asked me before I left if I'd show her how to make bread. As well, I really want to get back to Vancouver before the traffic gets horrible, and it was already 1 o'clock. And when I hit the freeway, the traffic was already horrible. So I'm glad I left when I did. But her suggestion was make a YouTube video of how to make the bread. I thought, well, that's a wonderful idea. Because I have an old beat-up mixer that I got for $10 at Goodwill. Doesn't have dough hooks or nothing like that. I have a food processor, and I've had one for years, and this is what I always use. Now this one is a Cuisinart, and it's got a little kinks in it. Before, I always used this blade here. This one comes with a bread blade, which I never use. It doesn't seem to make a hill of beans difference, as far as I can tell, in how the bread turns out. However, what I have noticed is different about this. In the past, I could dump my flour and everything in and then slowly add the water through the feeder tube and it would work great. In my old Hamilton Beach, loved that one until it fell on the floor and that bowl broke and I couldn't get another one. But I bought it for $12 at Goodwill, so I had it for years. Great machine. This Cuisinart is really nice too, but what I've noticed is when I put the flour and everything in and I add it through the chute, the liquid goes down in the middle, kind of stays there in this gummy mess with all the flour around the edges. You have to open it up, scrape it around, get it mixed up, and it's a real pain in the butt. So what I do now is, and I'm telling you this because, you know, if you're going to make bread with a food processor because you don't have a dough hook thing, you know, test it out first with a small batch to see how it works for you. Or you maybe already know. Okay, so what I do is I put my flour, all my dry ingredients in. And the one thing I didn't get out was my yeast, which I keep in the fridge. I buy it in bulk or cash and carry like everything else. I use the safe instant yeast. But I'll put all my dry ingredients in, and then I'll take a spatula and I'll scoop the flour sort of to one side. And then after I've mixed all of the other ingredients, the liquid, I pour it into that well I've made in the side. Then I put the top on and beat the snot out of it for 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so, or mix it up together. Okay, so first we're going to add, I've got the flour, 3½ cups for one bread thingy. I've got an egg here and some hot water. I have my milk. I use soy milk. It's a soy almond mixture. I make my own soy milk, soy almond milk. And about 3 tablespoons of butter. Love the taste of butter in bread. Marvelous, but you can use vegetable oil. I certainly do that at times too. You can use just plain water. You don't have to use butter. A little bit of oil. If you want moist bread, and of course a little bit of salt. It's for the flavor and tenderizing of the flour, or the bread, whatever. And because I want this to be a moist bread, I'm going to use honey for the sweetener. Because I use an instant yeast, if you use regular yeast, you take a tablespoon of that, put it in some warm water, about 1/4 of a cup of warm water, a little bit of sugar, and dump in your tablespoon of yeast or your package of yeast, whichever you use, and let it sit until it starts to grow, becomes slightly foamy, and then you mix it in with your other wet ingredients. Because I use the instant yeast, I just put the flour in the food processor, and I add my yeasty. Oops, take the egg out of here. You see me disappear for a second here. And I warmed up the milk a little bit. Dump the egg in there, of course, and I've learned to be a good shot with the kitchen sink. Otherwise I end up having to clean up a mess. You can melt the butter and put it in too if you want, but usually what I do is take the butter and dump it in. Put the top on with the push thing out of there. Turn it on. And I gradually add the honey into it. A couple tablespoons is more than enough. It's going to be a dessert bread for Thanksgiving, so it doesn't really matter if I put a little extra honey in it. Mostly to help the yeast out. Okay. So we got the butter incorporated with the honey. And I'm going to scoot the flour off to one side. Now you may not have, this is the first food processor that I had where I had to do this. Dump it in there. I can see the yolk didn't really get broke up, but I guarantee it'll get broke up in there. Blade is whizzing it around. And I'd rather have not enough liquid as opposed to too much. And then you'll see it start to come together. So it's going to need a little more water. Just enough so that the bread will come around. I'd probably put not quite a fourth of a cup in there. Because I think I actually didn't measure my flour very accurately, so, which is typical for me. I just dump flour in, add butter, egg, water, or, oh, and there you see it. Now it's formed a ball. So I let it mix for about several, 90 seconds or so. This is so you don't have to spend forever in the day at your counter kneading. This is kneading it for it. I find it easier to wait until it's kind of off over on one side a wee bit. As a big clump, and then you can take that out. Take this out, and you see you got a nice soft kind of sticky dough, and that'll make for a nice moist bread. Okay. Now, what I do next is, follow me in a second here. Pick us up and move us over to the other counter where the Thanksgiving turkey is starting to defrost a wee bit. And you really can't, I hate these stands for the galaxies, we really don't make them so you can show anybody anything other than their face. So I'm trying to kind of makeshift this a wee bit. I can use a towel here maybe to boost it up a bit so you can see what I'm doing. I use a piece of tile. Got a ton of it left over after the house remodel in 2007 because we had a house fire. And I had tile put in, and I bought it myself out at one place at really good deals. And I think it's so easy to clean up. But you can use whatever you want, of course. Your kitchen. And a little cooking spray on the counter or the tile, cutting board, whatever you want to use. Some people put it in a bowl. Okay. Ouch. Yeah, don't cut your fingers. Okay, I'll slap it down in that oil a little bit, get it greasy, because you want to squish it around kind of like this and form it into a ball. And look how beautiful elasticity thing that is. In less than a minute, or about a minute, minute and a half. you know, you have this beautiful elastic bread dough that would take you forever to knead into that shape and that state of elasticity. Okie dokie. Plunk it down on there. And grab a towel. Sorry about the noise there. There it is. Oh, we're on the breadboard. Are we there? Are we there? Okay. I can't even see it. Okay. It's there on the breadboard. Oh, here's a towel. Covered with a towel. Where it will set for 40 minutes to an hour. And then I'm going to pause this and I'll be back in a little bit. And we'll see how it's doing. Well, as you can see, it's about halfway done. Gotta let it raise for another 15 minutes, and it should be a little bit bigger and ready to put in the bread pan. Okay, here we are back. The bread is risen, so we punch the air out of it, fold it over, because if you don't, you're going to have holes in your bread, of course. And I'm not too sure. I got a loaf of bread already made up. What I really need is some hamburger buns. So the good thing about this bread is nice and rich. You can do anything you darn well please with it. So I'm going to take my sharp knife, because that's what I bought sharp knives for. And I'm going to make some hamburger buns. Because the bread in the food processor is so simple. That you can make a loaf of any time you want. You know, Thanksgiving morning, if you want to make some rolls. And just pull them together like that. I like to measure them. I've got a a scale. I originally bought it for my birds, so when the babies came along, they could be weighed accurately, and this weighs in grams or ounces. I have it set for ounces. And this is 2.83, which makes a decent sized hamburger bun. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We're going to get out of that. Scrap-a-dab-a-doo. That's a little bit more, so I'm going to split them up. Okay, these are all about 3 ounces now. We have slightly over 3 ounces. Some a little more, some a little less. So, pop those bubbles. So let me move right along here. I'm going to put you on pause because you don't want to stand there watching me do every single roll. And we'll be back and let them raise for about 20 minutes and then pop them in a 350 degree oven for about 16 minutes each. So I thought I'd show you how to make it how I make it into a hamburger bun. Sift with flour, but if you don't have a sifter, you can just have a bowl of flour handy and use a can or whatever. I've got a rolling pin that's marble, nice heavy one, but it's what's holding that Galaxy Note up. Believe it or not, this little flat thing here is going to raise up really nice in about 20 minutes. It won't get really huge, but then sitting in a 350-degree oven, it's going to puff up and be a nice little hamburger bun. Now, you know, they show them online with you doing it with them, these great big round things and all puffed up like a dinner roll, and I think, I don't want a hamburger bun that looks like that. I want to be able to get my mouth over the dumb thing. And so as I roll them out, I will leave them set there. You usually get 6 of them, 5 to 6 on a cookie sheet. Well, this is the top of a broiler pan, but that works equally as well. Okay, I'm going to finish and then we'll be back for the raising up and the baking. You know, this is also about being innovative, creative with your thing, you know, and the kind of flour you use. I mix whole wheat. I get the fine stuff, which can also be called pastry flour, whole wheat pastry flour. And I'll combine that with bread flour. If you don't have bread flour, you can use regular bread flour, and at Winco, in the bins, you can get Vital Wheat gluten. You don't have to put it in, but it does help it bind better and make a bread that hangs together better. We had a toaster oven that got too grungy to even try cleaning anymore, and it was a pain in the neck to clean, so when I tossed it out, I don't have any racks to put cookies on for cooling and stuff like that, so I kept the racks out of it. They're not the prettiest things. They could probably go in the oven when I clean it next cycle, but this is what I use for putting my rolls on when they come out of the oven. Works great. And it didn't cost me anything other than the original. Let's see, I think I paid $5 or $6 at Goodwill for the toaster oven that we had for close to 7 years. It was a nice little toaster oven. It worked great. So, okay, back in a few to see how those rolls are raising up, and then we'll bake them. And if you didn't catch it when I started, the recipe that makes one nice sized loaf of bread or 12 hamburger buns is 3½ to 4 cups of flour, 1 egg, 1 cup of milk, 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter or vegetable oil, a tablespoon of yeast or an envelope of dry yeast, or you can use a cake yeast. I just haven't used that in years. Do they even sell this stuff anymore? Anyway, and a little extra water on the side in case it is needed for the dough to come together, and honey. Honey adds moisture to the bread, so you have a more moist bread and a more tender hamburger bun. This is kind of a takeoff from a brioche recipe, but the brioche is a stickier dough. It's more eggs, of course, and richer milk, and wonderful, wonderful. But you have to be very careful with it, how much flour you put in it, or it can get kind of tough, which just makes for nice chewy toast. Still good. But anyway, these hamburger buns should be wonderful. Okay, anyway, I'm going to pause this again and come back in a few. Well, as you can see, they're not raised up hugely, but they will more than double in the oven. Hang in there for another 15-16 minutes. And here we go, our first load of hamburger buns out of the oven. They're cooled down. I'll split them with my little sharp knife. And yeah, very nice. Okay then. So, that takes care of that.